Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that helps to promote my channel quite a bit, so I appreciate that. I also love to have comments, so leave some comments in the comment section down below. So I've done various clasps throughout all of the videos that I've done, and in fact I did a box clasp video that had 3 different kinds of clasps, but I only really showed 2 of them, and the third one I didn't show, so I'm going to show how to make that one today. I had several requests for that, plus 2 other clasps that one I've done before and used in a video recently, the other one I've never done. And so we're going to get 3 different ways to make nice looking clasps for necklaces or bracelets, and I hope you enjoy it and find it useful. Before we get started, I want to thank my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a new one. Thank you so much, MMSS. I appreciate you signing up. MMSS signed up at the lowest tier level, which is a great way to get rid of the YouTube's commercials, so you can see the videos without any commercials over there if you're interested in that. There's also some other tiers where you get some more perks, so you should check that out. But thank you, MMSS. I really appreciate you signing up, and thanks to all my other patrons who've been so supportive and provide such a nice environment over there. Thanks for that. I also wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 7,900. We're getting close to 8,000, so that's amazing. Let's shoot for 10,000 next. So tell your friends, send them my way. I'd love to have them subscribe. But thank you all for your support and the kind comments in the section, and I really appreciate those of you who bought me coffees and things like that. That really helps out with supplies. So thanks for that. Let's get started on these 3 clasps. Okay, so let's take a look at what I drew up. This is my design idea book. I use these all the time now to write up my ideas when I'm coming up with plans for my videos, and I find that my designs come out better than they used to because I'm spending some time drawing them up in advance, which has seemed for me to produce a better result. One of the things I like about it is that it has these little dots in the background at the points of squares, so that it's kind of like graph paper except without all the lines distracting you, so you can keep things symmetrical, which is a problem that I have sometimes. So check those out in my merch store if you want one of those. So here's the 3 different types of clasps that I'm going to make. The first one is kind of a fold over clasp, and it has a piece of sheet that actually clips over and hooks on itself to contain the loop or whatever you have from one side of the chain. And so I'll show you how to make that. It's really not as hard as you might think. You just have to know what shapes to cut out. The second one I'm going to do is a pearl clasp, sometimes called a fishhook clasp. And these ones have kind of a hollow box with some little bars going up and down, and a peg that's springy that's inserted into the side and snaps into place. And I really like these ones. They're kind of nice clasps. I've never made one like this before, so this will be a first for me. This final one is from my previous box clasp video, which I never really covered how to do this one, but it looks like here's the one I used for that video. It's got a nice little peg that inserts into a slot here, and then you got these 2 clips on either side to hold it in place. So I really like the way this one looks, and I'll add this into the video this time so that you can see how I made it. So, all right, so let's get started with this one. I think I cut myself a little bit of 22 gauge sheet, which is what I'm going to use here for these 2 pieces. And I made them a little bit bigger than I need, so I'll cut them down as I go. But I need to cut out this shape first, and I actually made this a little bit longer because I think last time I did it, this piece was a little bit short. I'd like to have a little more room to work with, so I may make this slightly longer. This one was about 16, 17 millimeters. This is probably closer to 20. So width-wise, this piece I'm going to make about 3 millimeters wide. So that'll be about the same for this because this has got to fit inside of there. So this might be just a tiny bit bigger. So I think you can do this a couple ways, but I need to transfer this over to this piece of sheet so I can cut it out. And I think for this one, I probably will just use some, sometimes I use masking tape and stick it on there and draw it on. Other times I just use a marker like this. And then we'll scratch the design in with a little pin. This one requires some sort of bar on either side, so you can do it like this one, or you could just do a plain like rectangle made out of, I think I use 16 gauge for this. So I'll show you both types. Let's scratch out this design here. Got those about 3 millimeters wide. Alright. We have a little space here. Let's call it 2 millimeters. You could scale this up or down based on how big your links are and things and whatever you're making it for. Since I want this to be at least 3 millimeters wide, so this will fit into that space right here, I'm going to make this about, let's call it there's the center line. Let's go 2 millimeters to each side, so we got 4 millimeters to work with. That's not perfectly straight, but I can straighten it up with the file a little bit. So this is going to be a little bit shorter here, probably. Not like that. And these ones I'm going to leave long. Okay, some of this I can cut out with the shears. Some I'm going to have to use the saw, I think. So I'll cut these easy parts out here. Okay, so these two I'm going to do the jeweler's saw on, so let's go do that real quick. Once you feel like you have it filed pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to take these guys and bend them both up like this. So they're 90 degrees from the other side. Let's see if I can do it on this side too. So we get a nice little shape like that. You can see it's not perfectly symmetrical. I can straighten that up. Part of it is I'm kind of freehanding a lot of this. If you measure more carefully than I did, you can probably get it symmetrical right off the bat. Okay, so our next step is we need, this piece is going to be a little flip up piece that does this and clips over a little roundish area over here. But we need to have something for this to wrap around right here. So I'm going to put a little bit of 16 gauge round, a little piece here. Sometimes with little things like this, it helps me if I use the pliers to hold it, because the tweezers aren't very strong in their jaws. So getting it into place like this. See, I want it to be nice and parallel. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and solder that in that way. If you haven't seen my videos before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder and a spray-on flux called Mighty Flux. Torch is a Silversmith acetylene air torch. And I do a lot of pick soldering, which is where I pick it up with a pick and place it where I want it. That is a very useful skill. If you're interested in learning that, I have a video about it. I'll put a link right up there for you. So, okay, so this needs to ride between two of these, basically. So, alright, so the last time I did one of these, I did little kind of horseshoe-shaped ones like this, and that was nice, but these ones that I have as examples are too small for this one, because they have to fit over that. So this time I made a second type like this, where it's just kind of rectangles, and that'll fit over that like that. And then what we'll do is this other one, this will get wrapped around here, and so we'll have to figure out how much we need to cut off of that in order to create a loop around that. So I may kind of partially bend that to start with. If I put that in there like that, I can kind of estimate where to cut it off then. That right there. So let's cut him off about there. Let's see if I can get him a little curved. Before I pop this on there. Then we can kind of tighten that down. See, like that. Okay. Now, this thing needs to be filed a little narrower, so it'll fit in there. Okay, so this one is going to go, I have to make a loop on the end here. Not very big. I kind of want to be able to get that hooked over that. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to try and get that to curl around nicely around that. Do that. Let's see if we can kind of keep it from moving much. That's pretty good. Okay, so this needs to fit around that nicely like that. So this tells me where I can cut it off, and also I want to put a little ball of silver on there that I can grab with my fingernail to pull it up. So we'll solder that on. I might have to pull this back off for a minute, but either way, we can know where to cut this off. About right there, maybe. I need to make a little ball of silver. So let's find some scrap silver. Let's try that and see what that is. This is a soft magnesia block that allows me to push things into it, so sometimes it's nice to have if you want to put something upright. Because I want to solder this ball right to the top of that, kind of. Okay, so now it should catch over that like that. And you can bend it back and forth a few times to stiffen it up a little bit if it's not very strong. But basically, to clasp one side of the bracelet or the necklace to each other, slide that over like that, and that just clasps like that, and then you get a connection. So these kind do pop open sometimes, so it's not a bad idea to have a safety chain like I did on that bracelet. But if you want it to be a little tighter, just tighten it up slightly so it catches nice. All right, so I'm going to throw that in the pickle and let it pickle for a while, and we'll do the second one. All right, the second one is the type of clasp you see a lot of times on strands of pearls. So we need to cut 2 football-shaped pieces. I'm going to make a football-shaped one. You could also do something fancy if you want. The big thing that you need to have is 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical pegs of some sort, so that this thing can have a little notches here that'll lock into there. I also have one right here too, so even if it comes undone, it catches on that. It's hard for it to fall apart. I'm going to do some little wires soldered straight up and down like that on mine. But you could just cut little tabs into a piece of sheet and then bend them up and then mount another piece on top of those tabs. That would work just as well. Of course, you'd put one on the end too. So same goes for this shape. You could do the same exact thing, just with slightly different, fancier shapes. So a lot of times you'll find these factory made that have kind of a filigree look to them. Those are nice. But this is in case you want to make your own. So this one is about 16 millimeters long. Okay, so I'm going to use that as a guide to kind of cut this out. Then I can fine-tune the shape with my file a little bit. I think that's going to have to do. So now, probably use that as a guide to cut another one out. Alright, I traced that other one out onto that other piece of sheet and cut it out. So it's about the same size. And I have 2 pieces of 18 gauge, about the same length. Cut them so they're a little bit longer than this, because I'm going to create sort of a cage to create those upright pieces. And I'm going to use 2 of these, and I want to solder them together and it acts like this. So I'm going to kind of notch one of them a little bit here, kind of at an angle, right in the center. So we want these guys to be right about here. There's got to be enough room for this wire to go through here. So I don't want them too close to the edge. It'll get me kind of in the range. So like about right there, right there. So about like that. So I need to move them in a little bit further. I really want those to be relatively vertical and sitting right on those dots. So I'll keep working on that to get that to happen. I think I'm okay with that. That's pretty close. First thing I'm going to do is solder a little bit of solder onto the ends of each of these. And then we'll just set it on top of that and flux it. And hopefully we can get it soldered down in a nice spot. One other thing I'm going to do is add a fifth one right at the point, one side of the point here. So probably just manually put that one on. But in order to do that, I need to put a little solder on the end of it. So let's do that too. You just got to get the sheet hot enough for that solder that's already there to reflow and stick to the sheet. Now the wire up on top is easier to get hot, but it's already attached to that. You really got to get the sheet hot without overheating that wire on top. See, it just kind of flowed there. All right. This one. We'll put it on this side. One other thing I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and put a jump ring on here right now. Should have done this prior to doing this other stuff, but what are you going to do? We have this in case that wire falls over. I think we did okay. If you look at the store-bought pearl clasps like this, find they're not very wide, so I'm going to cut this off kind of short and file it down to where I want it to be. So we got those 5 little upright posts, but we need them all to be exactly the same length. It's going to be kind of like that. I think what I'll do for this is I'm going to sweat some solder along the edges of this thing, and then I'll just set it on top and reheat it till it flows. So let's put a little solder on this other one. Looks pretty close. Okay, so next thing we need to do for this one is to create this little guy. Let me see if I can find some more 16 gauge. I don't know if that's long enough. Because I think 16 gauge will be just about right. I think that'll work. Let's make a loop on this end that was already sort of looped. Let's try and do it like this. I'm going to make a mark. Right there. Too wide still. I can get it to stop right there. That's pretty good. I think if I use this fine tip marker, I can mark everything that's on this side, so I'll know where to make the little notch in that. So right at the beginning of that, I'm going to use a diamond burr on my Dremel and just put just a little bit of a dip right in there. So I'll be right back. This is the kind of burr I'm going to use. It's just a little cylinder with some diamond right around there. So this won't take me very long. There we go. It popped into place and holds nicely now. So that's ready to put onto a piece of jewelry, other than polishing. So the last one is sort of a modified box clasp, and it starts with a piece of 10 gauge square wire, which is this piece here, although I cut it a little bit long. So I'm going to create a box that fits right around this out of some 26 gauge sheet. So we need to cut it at least as long as this. I may cut this a little bit shorter, but we'll see. So let's cut it off a little bit longer there. This needs to go at least 4 times around. So there's 2, 3. I'm adding a little bit extra each time to get around the corners. 4, and then let's add a little extra for good measure. So, cut this out. Okay, so I'm going to make a sharp bend. Here, let's mark it out a little bit so it's pretty even. Like that. And let's try and bend it right there. Nice 90-degree angle there. Now, I want this to fit snugly in here. You can mark where the next bend has to occur. So we can try to bend it there. If you need to, you can use like push it on the table in order to get a decent straight bend there. So if I hold that in there like that, use my chasing hammer to to me it looks like from about right here that's just about where that line needs to be. So I'm going to go cut that off, I think with the saw. Just go this way a little bit and then bend it off till it comes off. So I'm probably going to taper this just a tiny bit, this piece of square wire. Alright, so part of this is going to be wrapped around the top of this, and so I'm going to make a little mark here. I think, maybe 3 millimeters, and I'm going to cut this off just with the jeweler saw. Okay. So I'm going to sweat a little bit, or pick a little bit of solder on the back end of that. We have some solder on the pad? Yes, we do. I'm going to taper this a little bit more. Not a lot. Just wanted enough so it slides in there smoothly. That's just about right. Okay. So I'm going to file this a little flatter. I'm going to put a top on this one. So just set it on top of there. I'm going to drop a little bit of solder into the tube after I flux it. Pretty small pieces, probably. Okay, I'm going to use a little piece of, it's 1.73 millimeter outside diameter tubing to solder to the sides. I'm going to create these little flippy catches. I need to solder a ball on this side, a ball on the opposite side, like that, and then a little piece of tubing about midway down that and on the opposite side. So to do that, let's just, I'm going to cut a couple of little tiny pieces of tube. We'll solder them off and then trim them down. Put a little bit of solder on the edge of the piece there. You can put a little bit on the ball too. That's probably good enough. Okay. So there's two things left to do. I'm going to put a jump ring on either end, and then I have to put some little 18 gauge wire loops through that I can squish and get tight on there. So I just need to file this down a little bit to make it more symmetrical. And then I'll make a couple of loops. We should be able to configure them so we can squeeze them tight so they get a good grab on there. Okay, I did a little bit of cleaning up on the piece here because it was a little sloppy. What I've done is I stuck a piece of 18 gauge through one of the tubes here and ran it up to the ball and then pulled it down like that. And what I'll probably do is cut it right across two of those because I want it to be snug on the ball like that so that I can pinch it a little bit to make it even tighter. So okay. So this is one of those situations, I don't really want anything to flow anywhere else, so I'm just going to heat just each ring and then try and pick solder each one closed so I don't get any kind of flow anywhere else. Okay, so you can see now we've got both pieces, little rings here. If I want them to be tight, I'm going to pinch them in the middle here a little bit. Should be pretty hard to pop them off of there. Maybe I got too tight. Well, they have a tendency to loosen up a little bit over time. So that's our little clasp. All right, so I will clean that up, and so I have some nicer pictures of these at the end. And right now we're going to pickle for a while, so we'll be back. So that was 3 different clasps that I think look pretty nice, so I hope you got something useful out of that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. That helps out a lot. And I'd also love it if you'd take a few minutes and peruse my channel. I have 260-ish videos. I've been doing this for around 2 years now, and I produce 3 videos per week, so there's a lot of content there, and I'd love to have you subscribe to my channel. So check those out and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the video description down below for some various relevant links, like a link to my website where you can buy jewelry, a link to my merch store where you can get one of those nice design books I showed you, or a link to buy me a coffee if you want to just help out a little with cash for supplies and things. And finally, my Patreon site if you want a little more interactive experience over there. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate you coming. Take care. Happy silversmithing.